Did you know that the life of Pontius Pilate, the man who authorized the crucifixion of Jesus, ended mysteriously and tragically? Imagine being responsible for the most controversial decision in history and suffering the consequences in silence. Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea, appears in various historical and religious sources. What happened to him after that fateful day? This story combines biblical, historical, and traditional accounts. Pilate is mentioned in the four Gospels of the New Testament, where his hesitation and eventual decision to crucify Jesus are detailed. His interaction with Jesus and the pressure from the Jewish authorities are described in Matthew 27, Mark 15, Luke 23, and John 18 and 19. Sources such as the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus and the Roman philosopher Philo of Alexandria provide additional historical context for Pilate and his governance in Judea. Combining these sources allows for a broader understanding of Pilate's complex figure and his role in the crucifixion. To fully understand his story, it is essential to explore the events narrated in the sacred texts and the complex political and social dynamics of his time. Continue watching to discover the incredible and disturbing story of the Roman governor who sealed the fate of Jesus. Pontius Pilate, Roman governor of Judea, was in a dilemma. The Jewish religious leaders demanded the crucifixion of Jesus, accusing him of blasphemy. However, Pilate found no crime in Jesus, John 18:38. He tried several times to release Jesus, even suggesting the annual release of a prisoner during Passover. Still, the crowd chose Barabbas over Jesus. Matthew 27, 15-26. Despite his reluctance, he yielded to the crowd's pressure, symbolically washing his hands and handing Jesus over to be crucified. Matthew 27:24. This gesture is an attempt to absolve himself of responsibility for Jesus' death. This act would echo throughout history as an example of cowardice and injustice. Moreover, the biblical narrative highlights that Pilate tried various ways to appease the crowd, including the flogging of Jesus, hoping that a lesser punishment would suffice to satisfy the Jewish leaders. Luke 23:16. This moment not only sealed Jesus' fate, but also marked the beginning of the end for Pilate, whose actions and their consequences would be debated and analyzed for centuries. Pilate was aware of the political instability of the region. Jerusalem was bustling with the celebration of Passover, and the presence of Jesus, considered a prophet by many, only heightened the attention. The religious leaders accused him of inciting revolt against Rome, Luke 23:2, a serious charge that could justify his condemnation under Roman law. Pilate was in a difficult position. If he released Jesus, he could face a rebellion from the Jews. If he condemned him, he would be authorizing the death of a man he considered innocent. To avoid a riot, Pilate yielded to their demands. Little did he know that this decision would haunt him for the rest of his life. The Bible does not provide details about Pilate's internal thoughts, but his actions indicate a man under extreme pressure, trying to balance justice with maintaining public order. Subsequent history suggests that this choice would weigh heavily on him. Historically, maintaining order in provinces like Judea required a delicate balance of power, and Rome's enemies could exploit any sign of weakness. Thus, Pilate was in an extremely complicated situation where any decision had the potential to generate serious political and social consequences. While Pilate was judging Jesus, his wife, Claudia Procula, had a disturbing dream. She sent a message to Pilate warning him to have nothing to do with that righteous man. Matthew 27:19. This dream is only mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew, and its origin and meaning remain shrouded in mystery. Some interpreters suggest it was a divine intervention to try to prevent Jesus' crucifixion. Claudia Procula is a figure who appears only briefly in biblical accounts, but her intervention highlights Pilate's moral dilemma. She had suffered greatly because of that dream, which she believed was a divine warning. Ignoring this warning would be a mistake that would torment Pilate forever. The Christian tradition later sanctified Claudia Procula in some denominations, reflecting the perceived importance of her role in the Passion drama. Additionally, the figure of Claudia is interpreted by some as a symbol of the voice of conscience trying to intercede in moments of moral crisis. Her disturbing dream adds a supernatural dimension to the narrative, suggesting that greater forces were at play in that trial. Jesus was crucified under Pilate's orders. The inscription on the cross read, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, John 19:1. This inscription in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek was an attempt by Pilate to affirm the accusation. Jesus claimed to be king, an act of treason against Caesar. While Jesus suffered, Pilate struggled with his doubts and guilt. The crucifixion of Jesus is a central event in the Gospels. It is described in detail, including the reactions of various spectators and the supernatural phenomena that accompanied it, such as noon darkness and the temple veil tearing. Pilate's decision to proceed with this form of execution, despite his reservations, shows the degree of pressure and the complexity of the political and social situation he found himself in. After the crucifixion, Pilate became obsessed with the decision he had made. The words of Jesus echoed in his mind, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do." Luke 23. Pilate's guilt grew every day, becoming unbearable. Although the Bible doesn't detail Pilate's feelings after Jesus' crucifixion, many traditions suggest he was deeply affected by guilt. His symbolic hand-washing couldn't erase the weight of condemning an innocent man. Some sources, like the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, even say he later converted to Christianity. When Jesus rose from the dead, Pilate tried to cover it up by bribing the guards. But the news spread quickly, making his guilt worse. As Christianity spread, Pilate faced pressure from both Roman leaders and local unrest. His brutal actions, like using temple funds and attacking Samaritans, led to his recall to Rome. There, he lost his position and lived the rest of his life in shame and isolation. Tradition says Pilate died in exile, possibly by suicide. Even today, Pilate's story challenges us to reflect on our own decisions. In times of pressure, will we stand for what's right or wash our hands like Pilate? God bless you. We will get to the next video.